Hello everybody, it's Mark Bloomhard here with Bootstrap & Co. Creative Studios, and my last episode, in fact, I think many of my episodes of my life, I'll talk about reading. I'll talk about read. And a lot of people are going like, dude, what books do you suggest? So, Dakota, who's standing behind the camera, suggested that I give kind of a book club, if you will. We're going to start off with 3 books, and from here on out, I'll probably do 1 book per session, if you will. Just a recommendation on that. So I just I just kind of grabbed 3 books that I thought were pretty different and that I wanted to highlight. So the first one is this book, Good to Great. Okay, it's by Jim Collins, and it is Good to Great: Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't. The reason I like this book, and the reason I'm suggesting this book, and I'm literally almost requiring this book, is that in many ways, this is the Bible for modern business. If I'm talking to somebody and I give a reference to Good to Great, and I look at their eyes and I see blank, you just lost a lot of confidence from me. You cannot be in the landscape of business and not understand this book. And I read this book. I know this book inside and out. I'm telling you, this is the Bible. This is a plumb line in business right now. Do not think, let me just be so strong to say this, do not kid yourself. If you are in business, I'm creative, whatever it is, if you're working with other companies and you haven't read this book and you can't talk about this book in great detail, I'm sorry, you don't take your career serious. That's all there is to it. Like, think about that for a second. Like, this book is one, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about it, right? That's all I'm going to say about it. If you're not reading this book, you're not taking your career serious. Because if you're a consultant, you're working with companies and you're working with businesses. And this book is one of the best ways to bridge the gap between what we do and what businesses do. You've got to understand that. So, again, if you don't read this book, you're not taking your career serious. And trust me, I throw references to this book all the time because I want to know who reads it. Next one. Ogilvy on Advertising. Okay, look at this book. Look at. I mean, I mark it up, and that's the other thing too. Mark up your books. These books, and the problem is I can't even flip through. Okay, so if you look at these books are all underlined, and I'm writing, things on the sides and everything else like that because it's a conversation. Seriously, it's like a $13 book. I'm writing to this Jim Collins. This Jim Collins is talking to me, so it's this conversation. I'm underlining stuff. I'm earmarking it. This book. This might be my 4th book, actually, that I've gone through. So there's probably not that much in it. That's how fast I go through these books. I just tear them up. So Ogilvy, I'm telling you guys, look at this. This is an old book. Look at this. It's 1970s kind of thing. I'm like, isn't that funny? Like seriously? It's one of the best books I've ever read in my life. This guy... He has just the most unbelievable, career path. One of the most successful branders. He started as a copywriter, and I don't even really know all the details of it. But actually, he worked. He actually had a farm, and I think it was in Pennsylvania or something like that. He lived with the Amish. So he lived with the Amish. He was kind of a copywriter, kind of liked it. I want to say he lived with the Amish for, my goodness, like 10 years or 15 years. It's David Ogilvy. And many times you'll see his, kind of quotes from him, right? And when he was 38 years old, he's like, forget this. I don't want to be a farmer anymore. I don't want to live with the Amish. So he just kind of packed up and went to Madison Avenue, kind of Mad Men kind of stuff in New York City, and got in office and wrote down, I think, 10 companies that he wanted to work for, like the biggest companies in the world. And I think he was 38 years old when he did that. He was unemployed. He had never really worked as a copywriter before. Just on and on and on. It's seriously, like, this is movie level stuff. I cannot believe, maybe somebody has, but I can't believe a movie hasn't been written about this guy. And by the time he was 41 years old, his company, Ogilvy, like, he got a partner during that time, so that helped out quite a bit. But during that time, he became one of the most famous copywriters of all time. So his clients within, let's say, 3 or 4 years were like Rolls Royce and, KLM and Heineken and, just huge names like that. And actually, I kind of find it funny. Here, this guy was living with the Amish, and then he lived in this place. So if you buy the book on page 22, that's actually kind of what he bought, right? So this guy is, I don't even know if he did billions of dollars of revenue. And he talks about advertising, Ogilvy on advertising. And he just unpacks advertising. He talks like a lot of stuff still stands. I know it was in the 60s or 70s, but the company's still alive and well. It's called Ogilvy. They just went through their own rebranding. And he talks about how he would rebuild his own design agency. So if you're thinking about strategy, one of my episodes that I talked about was how to advance in your career and talk about strategy. This is a great way to find out about strategy and advance. If you are a creative, if you are a copywriter and you haven't read this book, people, I'm telling you, I'm not sure if I could say that you're taking your career seriously. This guy talks about copywriter in such a good, simple way, it will blow your mind. And you know what? I hear this all the time. He talks about copy. He says, I don't care how long the copy is, as long as the copy's good. So many times people are like, it's too long. I don't care if it's that long. David Ogilvy doesn't care if it's that long. And guess what? He's like Michael Jordan in basketball. David Ogilvy's to advertising. It would be like Michael Jordan talking about how to build a winning team or how to slam dunk a basketball. So if you don't read that, if you don't know who Michael Jordan is, then you don't know basketball, folks. It's the same way with David Ogilvy. If you don't know who he is and you're not following him, if you're not reading what he's saying, then I'm telling you, actually, there's huge gaps, to your career. In fact, you probably don't really know that much about the creative. So sorry about that. He does talk about a couple different things. As building an industry or a creative studio. One of them is that he talks about looking for the right people. Now, back in the day, take it with a grain of salt, it was mostly a male-based industry. And he would, just stuff like, he would say, I would never hire somebody who was not a gentleman. Think about that, for example. So what does he mean by a gentleman? Somebody who kind of has their life in order, their finances in order, that kind of thing. He's not going to hire some hobo off the street that's a complete hot mess, that their personal finances are in disarray and everything. What are they going to do for your company? Think about that for a second. Think about it. How's your life? Do you have a regiment to your life? Do you have standards to your own life? So when somebody's running a company and they look down, they're like, is that, so if you can't take care of your own life, how are you going to take care of the company? So think about that. David Ogilvy, read everything about him. He has this is how much I know his book. He has a quote in here. And everybody talks about big data. Well, they had data back then too, folks. So some of this stuff is timeless. And he says these branders, what they do is they hide behind their research. Now think about this and listen to what I'm saying. This is how much I know this book. And I could do this with almost every book on my shelf. Actually, the branders hide behind research as a drunkard holds onto a lamppost. They use it for support and not illumination. Think about that. So you can sit there and you think about data and big data, it's driving the industry. But a lot of people hide behind it and they use that for support. Well, support doesn't mean that you're making executive decisions. That data needs to illuminate your decisions, right? It shouldn't be support, it should be illumination. How brilliant is that? And we're talking about the 1960s, 1970s. He's talking like that. How much more important is to talk like that nowadays, right? These people get completely stuffed and stymied by data. John P. Kotter, A Sense of Urgency. Now, this is probably out of the 3 books, this is probably the least known book. And oh my goodness, it's just beat up. I mean, it's kind of embarrassed how beat up it is. It's Goodwill, $2. Right? But what this guy does is he says that all organizations, I'm not even just talking about creative. So I pull this thing out all the time when I talk to universities and everything else like that. What they are missing is a sense of urgency. Now, if you want to sound really, really smart and have people respect you and stop and listen to what you're saying, you read this book. Most companies do not have a sense of urgency. Now, I want to read a little bit about this book, and you'll be like, true urgency is driven by a deep determination to win, not anxiety over losing. This book is filled with nuggets like that. Basically, he's saying that these companies are defunct and they're falling apart because they're eating their own young. They don't understand what's the most important things at stake, and they're running with panic, right? Everything is like a panic mode, sense of urgency. Doesn't mean that you're busy. It means that you're panicking before you're supposed to be panicking, if that makes any sense. So if you're sitting there in a business and everything's falling apart and all of a sudden you're like, you don't know how to make payroll next month and blah, 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 then you're going to panic, folks. You're going to panic because you didn't have a sense of urgency before, right? And I'm not even going to read this next line. That's what I'm saying. I know these books inside and out. A true sense of urgency, this John P. Kotter postulates. And I'm telling you, I didn't prepare for this, right? So Dakota, right there, she's running the camera. She's like, go get 3 books and talk about them. And, right, Dakota? Yeah, she just nodded her head, yes. So he has a line in here. This is how much I know these books. I'm telling you, I practice what I preach with this stuff. He has a line in here, and it says that true urgency understands that the world is full of hazards, but it's filled with great opportunity. Now think about that for a second. You're not sitting there and just completely optimistic, going like, we can do this thing. Like, let's do this thing. Let's all hold hands and let's have the kumbaya session. And you just drive that studio right into the ground. It's got great opportunity. He says that. But it also has great hazards. So if you think about it, it needs to kind of sit and it needs to structure some fear of God, if you will, inside of you. That, you know what, we're not out of the woods yet. I don't care how big the organization is, that bootstrap's still going to run with the sense of urgency. We're going to fabricate that sense of urgency because that sense of urgency is going to be our survival, folks. And so when I'm talking about books like this and they've made this huge impact on me, you'd be remiss if you're in any organization I'm part of that you don't read these books. I can't say that strong enough. Read the books. Read. Warren Buffett reads 80% of his time. If I got to read, you got to read. And if you're in Bootstrap and you're not reading, I look at you going like, you're not taking your job serious. Like, why am I supposed to read? Are you that much smarter than me? You've had that much more experience than me that you don't need to read? Like, seriously? That's one part of it. Second part is, how are we even going to communicate? If I say, hey, we got to have a sense of urgency, like, you hear a sense of urgency, what does that mean to you? It literally means nothing. It means what? Walk faster? Seriously? Have more meetings? If you're having more meetings and you walk away going like, people are like, wow, we just had a lot of meetings. Like, what got done? And sometimes that happens at Bootstrap, I'll be honest with you. That is operating without a sense of urgency. We should have less meetings. More things get done. And so when I hear that stuff, I'm like, we don't have a sense of urgency. And I do hear that. But I can't communicate with anybody if they haven't read it because we're not playing from the same playbook. Does that make sense? So 3 books. First one, Good to Great. Let me recap on this. If you're not reading this, you actually don't really know anything about business. I'll be honest with you, right? And you can't communicate. You don't understand. This is the Bible of modern day business, right? Enjoy your position because I don't see how you're gonna advance. I'm sorry about that. Second one, Ogilvy. If you don't know who Ogilvy is, if you don't follow him and you don't be his groupie and you don't sit there and read everything he has to say and have quotes and understand this guy and blah, 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 you probably don't know that much about creative, I'd say. So, seriously, Ogilvy. And don't be so quick to poo-poo what this guy says because it looks like it was written from the 1970s because it was. But this guy's smarter, more successful than probably everybody watching this vlog combined. Next one, Sense of Urgency. One of the greatest books ever written. And if you're not working with a sense of urgency, I'll be honest with you, your corporation's probably going downhill. So these 3 books are incredibly imperative. It's a good start to kind of a reading. And from here on out, we'll probably suggest 1 book, if you will. So best of luck. And again, Mark Blumhard with Bootstrap and Co-Creative Studios. If you have any requirements or anything that you're interested in hearing a little bit more about, man, I'm very passionate about this. And in many ways, I find meaning from this vlog, and it's kind of my gift to you as a creative. I wish you the best. And yeah, that's it for now.